Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is Ukraine War Update Extra, giving you that extra context to what's going on in the war in Ukraine. Now I want to report on what has been taking place quite consistently over the recent weeks, but also in an increased fashion recently compared to earlier in the war. There has long been a criticism that Ukraine is not striking railway logistics enough. Some people will say that it's very easy to replace railway line, and so therefore destroying railway line isn't that important. Destroying trains, they can be, taken off the track and fixed up and whatever. There are reasons why they might not concentrate on taking out railway logistics. It could also be that the drone capabilities have been lacking in being able to take out certain areas of logistics in certain places that they would like to. But it could be that the range of FPV drones has increased enough to be able to strike railway logistics at a point far enough behind the front line that means that we are now starting to see more such activity. So we are just seeing this today near occupied Tokmak, a powerful strike in the echelon of the Russians. And just to let you know where Tokmak is and where we're really talking about in general, we have a lot of activity going on in this southern area around Melitopol. So if we come down here, you can see that Melitopol, Mariupol, Berdyansk, Tokmak, and then down to Chonhar down here in the top of Crimea. This is a sort of area where I think we're seeing more activity, but particularly around Tokmak, where you can imagine it's close enough now to the Ukrainian positions that actually they can consider striking the railway with first-person view drones. So that is, I don't know, so you can imagine 40 kilometers to where the Ukrainians are able to send their drones. Imagine you've got a team that's here, then that's maybe 35 kilometers, and you can start hitting these railways around Tokmak. If we look at this map from War Mapper, we get a bit of an understanding of where we're talking about. So here we have the occupied area in that kind of puce color, Mariupol, Melitopol, Tokmak up here. But the railways, you can see these black lines here. These are what are being targeted, particularly up around this area. Now, we also understand that they've finished the railway, or I don't know whether they have fully finished it. They were doing it in chunks. This railway that goes from Mariupol to Melitopol to join Mariupol and therefore Russia to Crimea by going along the southern coast of Ukraine in this occupied area past Berdyansk. So that is a railway that might well come under a lot of pressure, although it is obviously slightly further away from, say, Tokmak up here and this kind of region. Right, okay, so let's look at the video that's come out today and see if we can figure anything out. So it seems that the railway line built by the enemy in the south is becoming increasingly dangerous for the occupiers. We continue to cut off the logistics of the Russians, says Max25 here. And indeed, similar sort of claim here on June the 25th, so that is 2 days ago, Ukrainian drone strike targeted a railway train near the village of Kutuzivka. The train was transporting ammunition to Russian forces operating near Tokmak in the temporary occupied part of Zaporizhia region. Footage of the strike was published by the Ronins unit. So let's have a look at that here on, in fact, if we see which is the longer one, this one's a minute. Let's go and just check out this whole video here. Turn off the sound, of course. Right, so here we have the drone coming into... So Tokmak is very close. It's very close to Tokmak itself. The drone then... And I'm wondering whether it gets grainy like this because there's interception, because electronic warfare is having an effect. You can see the train just below there, and it's hovering around, making sure it hits I presume, the most optimal place to hit it. And then cuts over to here. So I'm not sure. It's difficult to make out exactly what is going on. as it cuts around here and there. Not the greatest of pictures, that's for sure. And then it cuts out as it slams into the side of the locomotive. So it's going for the locomotive there. Now, we can't tell what the battle damage assessment is from that, but around this time, so the 25th, the 22nd, and then going back into May, there have been a number of these different strikes taking place, and I've reported on many of them. The Russian Southern Front said Intel Schizo, going back a few days, it's going back to the 22nd. The Russian Southern Front finally having its primary logistics node targeted. 5 trains verified struck in 2025, mostly over the past month, possibly 2 additional trains struck, but more verification needed. And of course, since then, there have been several trucks struck as well. The map shown here has one at Kerch, one at Chonhar, and then up near Melitopol as well. So that is what Intel Schizo said, and then makes reference to this strike that I reported, where the train was hit at least twice. And yeah, fuel train on fire in Molochansk there, which is, if we look at the map there, pretty close to where we were talking about, near Tokmak. Okay, so there's a lot of activity taking place. So Intel Schizo then went on a couple of days later to say, thank God Ukraine is finally attacking Russian rail in occupied Ukraine. Every few days, trains like this pass all across Russia, the Russian rear, between 15 and 45 miles from the line of contact. And this is talking about a strike on a train that isn't actually detailed in these pictures, referring back to previous footage of another train taken out on the 22nd. Well, this is 25th, but I think that might be from the 22nd. I don't know. It's difficult to know exactly when these events took place. But if you watch we'll watch these videos, you'll remember what happened here. So you got a train that had already been struck there, gets struck further up, and there was burning right at the top of the train as well. That strike seems to have hit to the side of the train, but it might be an explosion out of the side of the carriage that made it look like the strike was over, but then that carriage catches fire. There's also flames at the front of the train, look like they might have been off to the side. You can see here, looks like it might be off to the side of the train, but not sure. Anyway, that train is stopped, and that's what was taking place. Then we have the thermal imagery here, or I don't know. Yeah, it looks like thermal imagery with that train on fire in 2 points, so on and so forth. You get the idea. So lots of imagery of strikes taking place, and we could see that in the distance as well. It burnt apparently for 2 days. In fact, here we understand that some 760 meters of the track ended up being on fire and fire either side. So it could well have set a wildfire going. Not so wild, really. And that you'd imagine that the whole train might have caught fire by the end, but unsure of the finer details. Now, Intel Schizo said this going just yesterday, talking about railways in general. So changing Russian rail logistics in southern Ukraine per Andriushchenko. A quick breakdown of what was posted, and then we'll explain some more. So Mariupol port activity resumes. So we're going to get a little bit of background as to the kind of rail activity going on down here, and then wonder if the Ukrainians are really going to be focusing on trying to take this out. After months of near total inactivity, officially attributed to repairs, but reportedly the result of internal Russian rivalries, Russian forces have suddenly accelerated efforts to reactivate the Mariupol port. The goal is to turn it into a logistics hub capable of handling military cargo. New rail supply route in the works. So recent Ukrainian strikes have heavily damaged the Tokmak to Melitopol and Tokmak to Berdyansk railway branches. So we look here, Tokmak to Melitopol, there, that's this branch, and then Tokmak to Berdyansk. So Berdyansk is down here, so along there as well. So disrupting Russia's primary supply lines. In response, Russia is urgently working to establish an alternative logistics corridor using the Mariupol to Volnovakha to Rozivka to Tokmak railway route. Now, I'm not 100% sure what that is, but I know Volnovakha was up in this direction, up in the near Vuhledar So it could be an alternative route that maybe is north of here, but then that puts it in it makes it vulnerable to Russian attacks here. It could be sort of along this route here. So coming up from Mariupol up along here, and then maybe even north of there somehow, or whatever. So there are other potentials they're working on, but of course that they're just as vulnerable. Infrastructure upgrades. So to support this new supply chain, Russia is building or refurbishing a pier at the Mariupol port, laying new railway tracks, preparing the infrastructure to quickly transfer fuel from the port directly onto rail tankers, suggesting an intent to establish a fast, high-volume supply chain for fuel and material. Strategic implication is that such intense and rapid development around Mariupol has not been seen in over 18 months. The urgency indicates serious concerns within Russian command about logistical vulnerability and the need to restore operational supply lines in southern Ukraine. Current status is sources confirm active monitoring of the area with heightened attention on Mariupol's ports and rail logistics as potential critical nodes of Russia's military infrastructure. And of course, there is also the new line going from Mariupol directly to Berdyansk and then on to further towards Crimea. So lots of activity. They are trying to make, it appears, alternative routes, but certainly a flurry of activity to make sure that they have decent infrastructure to support what would be, I guess, regional transportation, possibly even to support offensives in the south too. So Intel Schizo said back on the 25th that this is a graveyard of trains at the moment, as already mentioned. Just a number of different strikes, particularly around Tokmak, but you've got north of Melitopol at that junction there, and also on the way from Melitopol to Chonhar. But you're going to be using different drones to strike these different targets, because you can just about get to Tokmak from the front line. That's that red line there is a front line. So broadly, you can strike with your longest range sort of FPV drones. When you're talking about down here and maybe even that junction area, you're going to have to use a different type of drone to do that. So Geo Insider said back in March 2025, so this is going back a few months, Russian authorities have constructed a railway through the occupied territory of Ukraine's Zaporizhia region and are preparing to launch a ring railway connecting Rostov with Crimea. So Rostov-on-Don Rostov Oblast, is this oblast here. You've got Krasnodar down here that goes on to Kerch. Rostov up here, you've got Rostov-on-Don, you've got Taganrog, and then going on to Mariupol. So they want to connect Russia all the way through to Crimea, just in case the Kerch Bridge gets blown apart. Then there's an alternative rail network operating into Crimea that is more efficient, goes along the southern coast, is further away from drones and missiles and whatnot, and isn't as vulnerable as these railways further up to the north that we can see are being struck more regularly. So freight trains may begin operating on the Mariupol-Melitopol Crimea route as early as next week or this week or next. Back in March, this was. Additionally, to enhance transportation along the Rostov-Novoazovsk-Volnovakha-Donetsk corridor, new infrastructure projects are underway. These include the construction of a railway bridge over the Berestova and Kalmius rivers near the village of Rozdolne, as well as a road bridge across the Shiroka ravine, linking the Donetsk-Novoazovsk-Mariupol highway with a newly built railway bridge completed in 2024. Andriy Shchenko described the project as part of a broader effort to establish a continuous transport corridor between Rostov and Crimea. So really considerable efforts going into improving their logistics in this area, as you can see. So, okay. Let's just throw in a couple of other incidents. So here, Tokmak area on the 25th, different to that other one we've seen. Ukrainian Defense Forces with a joint operation stopped the train with a first blow, cutting it in half. Now the bowling begins. Who will knock out more cars? Freight train has 40 plus cars. So there were claims that a train was taken out then. And of course, what we've already seen here, the fuel train being struck. And the video, this I think is another video of the of a train that was struck. Several tankers were completely incinerated, smoke visible 20 kilometers away. The train was meant to supply Russian troops in the southern front. Precision drone strikes. Okay, so this is the one we've already seen from a distance, but this is the FPV drone doing its business there, as you can see, and that's the video that we've already kind of referenced, and that was the FPV actually hitting. So various different views and angles, but the Ukrainians, it does seem, are picking up the frequency with which they are striking trains and these logistical nodes. Obviously, you take out the trains, you take out that fuel. If all that fuel burns down, then that's going to really hurt the Russian ability to prosecute the war, etc., etc. I suppose it's maybe worth continuing to watch this. It's sometimes difficult, makes your eyes go a bit funny watching, as you have very grainy, low resolution or interfered with footage documenting these strikes. Okay, and just as we finish now, that's another car that's been hit. We'll go on. So we've seen all of that imagery. Now, we also saw that same train being attacked actually from the ground, with a Russian soldier trying to fire at the drones. So firing at the drones there that were flying at the train. I think we heard that something like, was it 9 drones or 5 drones struck the train out of 14. So a lot more drones were going for the train than actually succeeded in getting to it. They did knock out 5 successfully reached their targets. They did knock out a military rail car on there. So new Russian video of train attack from a few days ago in and around Molochansk. A coordinated strike was conducted using 14 FPVs, and Russian air defense systems reportedly intercepted 9 of the drones. The remaining 5 reached their targets. Following the initial strike, the train was forced to stop, prompting personnel to uncouple 19 railcars for risk mitigation. These detached railcars were subsequently struck in a follow-on drone attack. So that's probably why you've got 760 meters then of burning railcars. So the initial strike stopped the train, they decoupled it all, and then it was just picking them off one by one. But that resulted in the destruction of 4 tank cars, which were completely burned out. So it doesn't appear like they're admitting that all of them were taken out, but there seem to be firm data suggesting widespread fires. In addition, one drone targeted a Neva utility vehicle assigned to escort the convoy, killing a sergeant and a junior sergeant. So that's what I heard at a military. Obviously, then a separate vehicle. Was that a road vehicle rather than a train carriage or whatever, military train carriage? It might be in another utility vehicle. Just Neva vehicle. So the drone took that out as well. And then what do we have? Intel Schizo back in May was reporting that Ukraine's GUR struck a Russian fuel train with a one-way attack drone at Novobodanivka in Zaporizhia. 3 tank cars, 50,000 gallons of fuel were destroyed. 1 boxcar was damaged or destroyed. It's the first attack on Russian trains in occupied Ukraine in 5 months. So most of the attacks have happened there, therefore, since then, in May. Second Russian fuel train attack with one-way drone in 5 months. First train attacked along the Jankoy-Tokmak line attacked. 5th train attacked along the Russian southern front ground lines of communication. 3rd images tracking of trains attacked by both sides since 2022. Okay, so essentially lots of imagery and lots of evidence that the Ukrainians certainly are picking up their targeting of Russian trains. Then he said, this was yesterday in Intel Schizo, the Ukrainian drones yearn to eat more trains, as a Ukrainian drone was shot down in Tokmak, obviously trying to hit a train here, shot down right next to the train lines. So they are sniping away, aren't they, these drones, really trying it on. And then this came out today. So Skyrider's Ukrainian drone crew, and I have no idea where this is, could be anywhere along the front line, struck a Russian logistics route with FPV drones, hitting a mined railway bridge on the eastern front. So obviously this is the eastern front somewhere. But what's interesting about this is that this drone hits the drone doesn't blow up the bridge, but the bridge is packed with mines. And it does make me wonder whether this is a real long-term, long in the making, long in the planning operation where you have a railway bridge that's under your control. You stack it with mines just in case you lose it, and you wait a whole bunch of months for the Russians to then start using it once they take that land, and then you blow up the bridge by flying a drone into those mines, and then bang, that bridge is in a whole bunch of trouble. But I don't know the finer details about what happened there. Suffice to say that the Ukrainians are hitting trains, and it's something we need to look out for, I think, over the coming days and weeks. See what more takes place, particularly in the south, where these logistics are really super important for supplying the Zaporizhia front, for supplying the Kherson front, even supplying Crimea, because there are some concerns about the stability of the bridge with the previous strikes with those USVs on the bridge. The Russians might not be willing to put the full weight that they can on, or that they normally can on the bridge, and might prefer these alternative routes. So there are lots of reasons to take out these trains and these hubs, and I wonder if you can partner that with sabotage, take out relay boxes, and then, you know, if you can hit some of these junctions, a fuel train as it goes over the junctions or whatever, then I don't know, maybe that's even greater return on investment. But there you go. Trains, and trains. That's what the Ukrainians appear to be focusing on in this area. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.